X forever.
All these drugs just make me anxious. Look, I'm just tryna f you, not them hoes you came with. Pull up on 6, slow, loud and banging. Yeah, Texas forever, still twisting my fingers. Texas forever, you speaking my language. Look, all in the day, but for Wednesday. Out in the field tryna score me a deal. Put my name by that X like I'm Kimbe. I do it all for my team, just a young covered in green like I'm Dende. We ain't projects comprende. Clutch City, Crush City, whatever you call it. I stay with my friends, stay hands in, never hand out. Look, I had it, go get it, my everybody say I'm the man now. Wrist moving in and out the kitchen, my might pull up on 6 in the whip, whipping it. I'm just a young getting it. All I had was the pot I was pissing in. Now everybody want pieces, percentages. I'm just trying to get my niggas over. I did the work that they want. All this money, cash, cars, clothes, hoes, coming in fast, but I'm sipping slow. Since Texas forever, you already know. It's boy down at
X forever.
What's up? What it do? What's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining me here on a late night edition, but we're here nonetheless on a Wednesday, bringing you the H-Town Huddle, and we're previewing week 2. We're coming off of a rough week 1, but some positives to probably take away. We'll get right into it. I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible, but I'm going to hit all the main fantasy points like I normally do. You guys know how this show works. If this is your first time being here, thanks for tuning in. Why don't you visit neonpeacockmerch.com, like you see right up there up top. Check out some of the cool shirts like the GWN one that I'm wearing right here and some of the other cool football stuff that I got going on for everybody. So appreciate everybody who is already hanging out with us in the chats. Lee, appreciate you, my good friend, good brother. Rigging for Fatties, man, good to see you. Appreciate you for stopping by. We're here talking some Texans football. We're going to talk over just briefly some of the stuff that happened last week. We'll highlight some of the fantasy points, some of the things that we saw that are good from the Texans and the opposition, and then we'll head into week 2, and we'll do the same thing there, previewing both sides of the football, talking fantasy. And this is the only fantasy football-minded Houston Texans digital show that you will find on the internet containing fantasy football news. I guarantee you everybody else is going to be talking about the team, stuff like that. But this is mainly focused on fantasy football with some betting lines and Vegas lines and implications like that sprinkled in. So appreciate you guys for tuning in, showing up and showing out like we do in Houston nonetheless. But like I said, rough start, didn't get the W, right? We'd probably be feeling a lot different if a turnover at the end of the game, allowed CJ Stroud to maybe take a chance and toss a TD, or have that opportunity to at least throw the ball towards the back of the end zone for 3 or 4 opportunities towards the end of the game and see what happens there, but didn't get that chance. And so 14-9 loss, and it feels a little bit sour, but nonetheless, we'll get there. We'll go over some of that stuff as I go along, kind of have a quick outline that I want to run through. So, appreciate everybody. Appreciate you, Bogart. I've been having some technical difficulties. This stupid camera I have over here is not working. The one on top of my computer, that one. So I'm just using it for I don't even know what I'm using it for. I'm using it to control everything else, I guess. And I'm doing this off my phone today. So long day, long work day, parent teacher meeting, had to work out, do dinner, tragedy in school shooting nationwide, praying for those people and the assassination and all that other stuff. So just a crazy day. It's like if they didn't want this stream to happen, but we are here and we're doing it, right? So appreciate everybody for being here. And all right, so that being said, let's get into it. Let's get right into the nitty gritty. But first, a short Houston Huddle intro. Make sure you're checking out neonpeacockmerch.com, like I talked about. Whoops, not that one. No, not that one. That one will work. Neonpeacockmerch.com for all of the cool gear. Throw anything and everything that you guys need out there. Any commissions, anything you can think of. The motto is it can be done. So just make sure you're hitting me up either in the comments at MilesPeacock24 on Instagram, or anything else in the GWN network when we're on another show. Go ahead and make sure you're hitting the like and subscribe for the GWN network. Doing that with Wake Your Game Up Tuesdays and Friday mornings. And we also have the Waiver Wire, Your Game Up on Tuesday mornings. The Grit Don't Quit all day Sundays. We're doing all the Sunday live streams and the watch parties. So, that's how we do it. That's how we do it. So, all right, let's jump right in without wasting any more time. Monday Night Football, ladies and gentlemen. The Houston Texans are hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Home opener for the Houston Texans. 46.5 point over under. So, Houston, not favored in this one. We got the Bucs 2.5 favorites, I believe, in this one, if I'm not mistaken, unless I read the line wrong there. But jumping into that, just going over the Buccaneers, they faced the Atlanta Falcons last week. Falcons missed a last-second field goal, and so Tampa Bay, I believe, to tie the game. So Tampa Bay ends up moving on there, and it's 23-20 in that one. Houston, like I mentioned briefly, 14-9, a close defensive battle with the LA Rams in LA, a very good team. And I saw some videos. They had a packed house. It was all LA Rams fans, very loud. So a kind of hostile environment. But the key for this game in Houston Monday night, it's going to be pass protection on both sides. Obviously, the pass rushes on both sides of the football are going to be key here. Obviously, the Houston Texans have a weak offensive line, so we'll see just how easy it is for Tampa Bay's pass rush to get to them. Otherwise, on the other side, we know that there is what I like to call the nightmare fuel in Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, and those guys are just beasts. They got to the quarterback, Matthew Stafford, this last week, and they caused a lot of pressure and havoc, and we'll talk about that here in a second as well. So in order for them to be successful, I think that's going to be probably one of the big keys, right, to the matchup that's going on. But, it's the same storyline as last year. We'll keep going through that. But Baker Mayfield, this last game was really impressive. For the most part, he had a lot of pass attempts, wasn't really, it was about 50% on all of those. I think he was 17 of 32 for 167 yards. 5.2 yards per attempt. But here's the big thing: 3 touchdown passes and 99.3 quarterback rating. Only took 1 sack, and he was pressured on 40% of those 32 attempts. So that's going to be key. Can Houston keep Baker from kind of using his legs and extending plays and being accurate? If we can disrupt him on just bringing the straight front four, or even, disguising blitzes or whatever it is, kind of get him off his game, then that's the game plan. And they tried to do that with Matthew Stafford this last week. Matthew Stafford was on it. There's a play in which Azeez Al-Shire is just breathing down his face mask, and Staffy is looking off to his right, and he flings it like sidearm, no look, while taking the hit, fires a bullet over the middle of the field for like 20 yards to Puka Nacua, and the safety, or the deep safety or linebacker or whoever it was, was thrown off by the no look, and the over the top safety, had to come in and make the tackle. So, it's crazy quarterback play. Matthew Stafford, when he's healthy and he's on the Rams, they're no pushover. So I think that we got to remember the Rams are a really good football team. They won 10 football games last season. They took the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles down to the wire in the playoffs. So, for a 14-9 victory, it was close. Houston was leading, for most of that game, going up into the second half, where they just failed to do absolutely anything on offense. And we'll get into that as well. But, it was still a closely fought battle. Like I said, defensive game, just hoping to see a little bit more from the Houston offense, trying to get them to finish drives or punch those things in instead of having to settle for field goals in the first half and then turnovers on drives that were actually moving in the second half. And we'll talk about the penalties and the lack of tempo and rhythm and stuff like that as well. But, going back to Houston Texans defense and that pass rush against the Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Houston Texans defense, they allowed 14 points. Like I mentioned, they only allowed 7 of 13 conversions on third down. in those 29 pass attempts. They did have 3 sacks and 6 quarterback hits. And so I think Fatakasi had a sack. Will Anderson Jr. had plenty of pressures. I think it was like four quarterback pressures, 4 quarterback hits, and a sack. So winning on almost 50% of his pass rush, pass rush win rate around 50%. So you're talking about every time Stafford went back to pass, one out of every 2 times he'd have Will Anderson right breathing down his neck. It's just Matthew Stafford played phenomenal and did really well under pressure as well. So I think obviously head coaching there, McVay did a great job of scheming up and doing things and getting the ball out of his hands quick and able to just alleviate some of that pressure with just good play calling. And on the opposite end of this field, Nick Caley in his debut didn't do a great job in doing anything like that for CJ Stroud. So it is what it is. Hey, what's up, Clock? He said Woody stiffed him last week. Pause. Yo, that's right. Stay tuned live. Appreciate you, man. Yo, what's going on? I thought Pierce is going to get more burn. Yeah, I thought so too. He thought he had some juice, but Chubb did okay with 13 attempts. You'd like to get more rhythm and maybe more of the running game established, so then maybe you could play action and take some shots down the field. That didn't happen, but 13 attempts for like 60 plus yards isn't bad for Nick Chubb. I'll go over his stats here in a second when I get there, but yeah, it's kind of like a mixed bag on offense. I mean, I think if you go back and rewatch it, it's not as bad as you think, but we do know what the problem is, and that is the offensive line. There were 7 plays in which CJ Stroud had less than 2 seconds to get rid of the football, which, in the NFL, that's a sack every time. So we're lucky that, he didn't turn all of those 7 plays into 7 sacks last week. So that's crazy. Yeah, are you barely realizing they have Chubb and Woody and Pierce in the backfield? So watch out. Yeah, crazy. What's going on with the EJ Speed? No rotation. No, I saw him in the game. He just didn't get much action in coverage. H2O was just kind of all over the field. Even friendly fire knocking the shit out of Devontae Adams and injuring Derek Stingley on the 3rd play of the game. So yeah, and I think Derek Stingley being behind him on that catch kind of held Adams up, and he was able to not really receive the full brunt of that hard ass hit from H2O, who played fairly well, I think, alongside Al Shire, who actually had a really good game as well. So I think the Texans defense for the most part did a good job. They should have probably gotten home to Stafford a little bit more and not allowed Puka to escape in some of these plays. I think that Jalen Petrie was very suspect in coverage, and for that reason they got beat at the end of the game. And there was a couple of throws, like I mentioned, that no look pass one where Petrie was in line to maybe have an interception if he kept dropping in coverage, and he got thrown off by the no look pass. So McVay's he knows what the defense's weakness was there. Obviously it's guys like Petrie in coverage or a slow linebacker in coverage. We didn't get much of Christian Harris in there either. I dropped Petrie. I dropped Christian Harris from IDP leagues, and I made room for other waiver wire pickups because right now they're just rotational. And if it's not H2O or Al Shire, then those are the guys that are making the tackles. And then obviously Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter, right? So those are your main IDP pieces in there. But I'm hoping that maybe CJ Gardner-Johnson plays a little bit better. He had a couple of plays where he was just kind of slightly out of coverage or out misaligned, where he just barely missed from having some big plays or even a better day. So I think that they may use CJ Gardner-Johnson in that role a little bit more, maybe trust him a little bit better, because he won't be as susceptible in coverage as Jalen Petrie is in coverage. So Kamari Lassiter had some misread plays. He allowed a touchdown to the corner of the end zone with a tight end, if I'm not mistaken, some guy named Allen. That helps nobody for fantasy, but caught him peeking his eyes into the backfield on a play action there. So just little things that the defense could have tweaked. Like, the defense played phenomenal. They only allowed 14 points from a Matt Stafford team that has Puka Nacua. Devontae Adams only had 51 receiving yards. Jalen Petrie was hurt and following him most of the game, so I thought he did an okay job. Could have been a lot better, obviously, and I'm going to chalk it up to him kind of being a little bit banged up. But honestly, if he stayed in the game and he was wincing after every play, suck it up, Buttercup, and don't allow 51 yards, right? But Puka Nacua is the one who really hurt them on defense, and it was because he was in the slot. They found ways to get him in the slot with guys like Jalen Petrie in coverage. He's just not really that good in coverage, so he's more of a hard-hitting guy who likes to stay in the box in obvious run situations. And so I think McVay did a good job of just mixing it up, and that's what happens when you have an offensive-minded head coach. Yeah. All right, so Of course, yes, we do. Yeah, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and that's what's going on with that situation there. Just kind of, they should not panic. Yeah, like that. Oh man. Hey, what's up, Ghost Monkey? What's going on? Appreciate everybody for stopping by in the chat and being active. Trying to get through these notes. Matt Stafford, like I mentioned, 245 yards, 109.1 quarterback rating. Puka Nacua, 130 yards. Devontae Adams, 51. I mentioned that. So this weekend, the Texans, or not this weekend, but after this weekend, on Monday night, your late night Monday Night Miracle. We have a double header. Make sure you're watching the GWN for that. But they're gonna be facing Emeka Egbuka and Mike Evans. Egbuka went 4 receptions on 6 targets for 67 yards and 2 touchdowns late in the game. And then Mike Evans, 5 receptions on 8 targets for 51 yards, kind of Devontae Adams-esque in there. So, I'll go through some keys to victory later when I get to the end of the notes. So I'll have some stuff about that. But Bucky Irving last week versus Atlanta, 14 carries, 37 yards. So hoping the Texans can still bottle him up there and do kind of that same thing and kind of keep him from, raising a lot of trouble with the ground game, because they did a decent job versus Kyren. We'll talk about that as well. But Baker, 5 attempts for 39 yards on the ground. That's something they're going to have to worry about a little bit, I think, this coming week. Matthew Stafford, obviously, elder statesman, not necessarily super mobile. So Baker is opt to run 7.8 yards per carry last week on his 5 attempts. But yeah, Houston's run defense, 25 attempts that they faced last week, only 72 yards allowed and 2.9 yards per carry allowed as a team versus the Rams. I think Kyren was still around 3.7 yards per carry, and he also had that touchdown, which saved your fantasy game. It is what it is. Houston Texans run defense is still kind of stifling, Let's see. Did I see Tyreek's under investigation? Yeah, man. Ooh, I have 1 share in Dynasty. If anybody wants to come get him in that league, any of those guys locally, and yeah, I'll put them up for trade. I probably won't have any takers. Jalen Waddle's for sale also in where do I got him? I got him somewhere. But anyways, just so y'all know, interested in how the DBs play this. Yeah, it's going to be a matchup to watch, no doubt. But Stroud this past weekend did not look good. Talking about DBs, I think that he might have a more favorable matchup this week. Rams defense, their defensive line put a lot of pressure. Their front 7 actually put a lot of pressure. Not to say that Tampa Bay's is a pushover. They do have a very interesting front 7 as well that I'll talk about in a bit. But CJ Stroud not good last week. 19 of 27 attempts, 188 yards, just short of 190, right? 2 of 9 on third downs. As far as conversion rate, not too good. He did have that interception that was ripped out of Jaden Higgins' hands. It would have been like a 20-something yard completion, would have put him over 200 yards, kept the drive going, could have been possible points. Texans only lost by 5. So if those 2 drives that stalled deep in Rams territory with turnovers had turned into field goals, they would have won by 1, even if they had scored no touchdowns. So very close game. And I think that, just little costly mistakes, tons of penalties. But yeah, Penix, going back to Penix, we'll talk about that. Penix last week, 298 yards, almost threw for the 300. He had a TD, a 93.2 rating versus the Bucs. So that's promising. Hopefully CJ can follow that, kind of be in that kind of line with them, right? But yeah, they were able to put up 20 points on the Bucs, and they were 6 of 15 on third downs. So yeah, the weird thing with the Nick Caley offense was, I think, with the thing going on with Braxton Berrios being out and Christian Kirk being out, and I think Christian Kirk is still probably going to miss another week. They said it could have been multiple, so at this point, I'm not banking on him coming back. However, I do have him in a lot of fantasy leagues, and you had to move him out of your IR in order to make moves and pickups and things of that nature. So I'm thinking he'll probably go through the same kind of deal. If there's a did not practice on Wednesday, chances are he's going to totally miss this week. That's my guess. They're just going to hold him out another week and see if he can return for week 3. But Houston had 10 different players with at least 1 target. What the fuck? I didn't even realize we had 10 skill players on offense that we could throw the ball to. Why are you doing this? I mean, I get it, Kaylee. Maybe try to figure out what's going to work. But I mean, Christian Watson getting like, not Christian Watson. What's his name? Justin Watson getting like 3+ targets instead of guys like Higgins out there or Noel, the young guys that you figure you could, kind of move along and put him in these situations. If you're struggling that bad, why are players like him getting more? Cade Stover was your leading target leader and reception leader, and I think he had like 24 yards, 4 catches. Like, it's ridiculous. Nobody had more than 35 yards receiving. So Nico Collins with 5 targets, 3 catches. That's just bullshit. I mean, if you're having a bad day at the office and he's your best player, throw it to him 15 fucking times and see what happens and see what works. At least Bobby Slowick was doing stuff like that last year. So you're a fucking coward, Nick Caley. You need to get your shit together. If the same kind of thing happens this Monday night, there's going to be a riot in Houston after the game because it's going to be a packed house. It's going to be loud. The defense is going to show up and do their job, and the fans are going to help you try to win. So get your shit together, offense. Get it together. All right. Sorry, rant over. Yeah, Christian Kirk does have a hamstring injury, so that's what's happening. I also have him. It sucks right now, the whole situation. Texans are so stupid with the way they handle things. If his injury is really serious, they should have probably just fucking put him on IR. I don't know why they don't put players on IR. I think they feel like they have to save those moves for mid to end of the season because you only get to bring 8 players back or some bullshit like that. Anyways, chestnut checkers, right? And so at the end of the day, the last 2 years, they've started off rough. They've won 10 games and won the division. So they've lost games they shouldn't have, and they've won games that they shouldn't have. And they've looked great at times, and they've looked horrible at times, and sometimes all of that in the same game. So same old this last week. Hey, what's up, Smokey the Cat? Appreciate you for dropping by, man. It's happening. It's happening, man. But yeah, no one with more than 35 receiving yards. Ridiculous. Stroud was pressured on 41.2% of his 27 attempts, and he had taken 3 sacks. 3. One of those, I think, was really his fault. The pressure was coming from the outside. I think the offensive lineman, the right tackle, whoever it might have been on that particular play, because Jake Andrews got hurt starting center. Then they started switching everybody around instead of just replacing one guy. And so you had the rookie Ursary going back and forth. He had several welcome to the NFL moments against Verse and other, malicious front 7 guys from the Rams with a 41% pressure rate. Oh my gosh. But yeah, crazy. I can't believe that this is still an issue. They had so much time to fix these issues for the offensive line. I think right now the only hope is take some fucking picks that you have in the future and go get somebody on a heavy contract that wants to get traded, and go get a fucking big staple name offensive lineman. I don't care what it costs. We need some talent because we, 1, don't have a lot of talent on there, if any. 2, there's 2 guys on there that you don't even want to put in games, and yet they went in there, and as soon as you put them in the game, Blake Fisher gets a penalty face mask to the face of the defensive lineman, whatever it is. Drive killers. And not only that, it doesn't allow you to get any sort of momentum going, any sort of rhythm, any sort of cadence, any sort of tempo. And the Texans were saying that they were lollygagging, and CJ Stroud was saying that, that they were kind of going through the motions. Yeah, because you couldn't get a fucking tempo rhythm going because there's so many freaking penalties. And the penalties were not like false starts. It was just like, it was a hold here, or a ridiculous illegal shift, or by a receiver, or a false start by a receiver, or a legal hands to the face by an offensive lineman, or a delay of game. And they were just killing themselves with ridiculous things. And it's not even the fact that, like, you're missing Laramie Tunsil. I saw highlights of Laramie Tunsil in Washington where he completely doesn't even move on a snap and lets a defender get right to Jaden Daniels, who just has to throw the football away. And then on another play, don't even get me started. Laramie Tunsil is doing Laramie Tunsil things over there. So I think that trading him away is just fine. But they didn't address the offensive line and replacing him or getting any kind of semblance of a team in front of CJ Stroud. I think they waited forever. They waited in the draft, and then they just said, let's get a bunch of bodies in here and see if something sticks. And that's just fucking stupid, because you're going to waste CJ Stroud if you don't get that shit right. You know what I'm saying? It sounds like the Packers. Yeah, it sounds like the Packers last offseason. I believe you. We drafted Evante Ursary, and we got Cam Robinson, and Ed Ingram is injured, and Jake Andrews, the starting center, is injured, and Juice Scruggs sucks, and we don't want to put him in the game, and Blake Fisher sucks, and we don't want to put him in the game. What's good, Crooked? So, I mean, all that is happening. Appreciate you for stopping by, bro. So all that's happening, all the commotion there with the offensive line. CJ Stroud now has, what was that stat? I think through I don't know, whatever career number of games he's had or whatever, he's been the most pressured quarterback in NFL history, which is wild. because I thought it was Deshaun Watson a few years back when we had the same issue that's happening here, and when we traded away Dwayne Brown, so it's like history fucking repeating itself, but it's like a different GM. It's just so weird that happened. But anyways, it is what it is. Maybe they'll get it together. Now, there's, like I said, some semblance of hope. Nick Caley gets his head out of his ass. He's too smart for his own fucking good. Gets back to the basics. These guys stick to one thing. They get the cadences down. They hold their water up front. They limit the fucking penalties and the drive killing, and they get a tempo going. They play fast. They do no huddle. Maybe throw some more wide receiver screens. You just got to do things to get the ball out of CJ Stroud's hands quickly, and like you're playing fucking 7-on-7 or 2-minute offense or something. You got to find a spark. So that's one of the keys to victory. But also, I'll close up with that in a bit. I want to talk about the rest of the offense that just got hung up on the stupid offensive line I didn't really want to talk about. Xavier Hutchinson and Justin Watson had more than 50% snap percentage. Yeah, I know. More than Higgins and Noel. I know. So are they the 2 and the 3 for now until Kirk comes back? Shit, dude. I fucking hope not. Like, I don't understand. Are they that much better? The new OC is Nick Caley. He comes from the Rams. He was also on the Patriots staff before. He was a tight ends coach. This is his first OC gig. This is his first time calling plays. So, play some fucking Madden, dude. Just traded for Travis Hunter. Put it in my flex. Gave up Zach Charbonnet for PPR. Well, I mean, in PPR, I like it. You can never trust that Seattle backfield. Like, if Charbonnet could be healthy and killing it one minute, and Ken Walker comes back and the hot hand approach kind of thing. I kind of like Travis Hunter. They did say that Hunter is going to be playing some more defense, though, which kind of worries me. I'd rather just have him playing fully offense, but, it is what it is. But yeah, 3 sacks, not great. The Bucs pass rush versus Atlanta. On 42 attempts, they got to Penix once only. They had 4 quarterback hits. Another 40% pressure rating. So, if Texans see something like that, maybe it was because there was a lot more pass attempts, right? But yeah, another question from the chat: who's behind Chubb? Woody? No, it's actually Pierce. Woody, and then it was Agumba Wale. Agumba Wale got the most play, like I've been saying. It's just I think it was unfortunate that he had that fumble there towards the end. Trying to be like Superman, dove forward instead of kind of just going down or diving sideways or rolling or something, and he got the ball punched out by Landman. And that cost them the game because there was still about 2 minutes or just about a minute and a half left. That was a first down inside the 20, I think, with a possibility to pick up another set of fresh downs. And I think they had 2 timeouts. So plenty of time to win that game, trailing by 5. I was worried that they could score too quickly anyway, because they moved the ball down the field relatively well in that final 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes of the game to try and win it like CJ Stroud does. He typically puts people on their back and tries to lead them down the field for victory like they did last year in this great game versus the Bucs. If you guys saw that one last year, it was a hell of a game. I think CJ Stroud had, I think I have it here somewhere. Last time they played, Stroud had 5 touchdown passes and 470 yards versus the Bucs. He also had Tank Dell, right? So that was a big difference. Yeah, like that play Madden, right? I mean, come on, basic shit. Like, you see the fucking blitzes. Also, like, these guys were not breaking the huddle and getting to the line of scrimmage early enough time to have Stroud diagnose the defense and maybe change the play. When you get into the line of scrimmage and there's 15 to 10 seconds left, you barely have time to read the defense. So, tempo, more stuff like that. They gotta get better. D'Amico Ryans talked about it, said that they got to have a little more sense of urgency and that it was his fault. I don't see how. He's not an offensive fucking coach. I guess he's the head coach and it comes back to fall on him. But, anyways, let's talk about Nick Chubb, though, really quickly. Nick Chubb, 4.6 yards per carry on only 13 attempts. I wish he'd kind of gotten a little bit more work in. But, there's a lot of times when they're moving the ball and there's a random, like, holding penalty or something stupid or a delay game. And so they had to get out of the run mode, and then he's really a 1-2 down back, not necessarily a great third down receiving back unless you scheme it up well, and nothing was working well for the Texans as far as getting a scheme or any sort of rhythm going. So they would bring in a third down back. Agumba Wale was kind of getting some looks. Unfortunately, he had that fumble. Woody Marks had a few touches, a few opportunities, did absolutely nothing with them. So that's also unfortunate. But yeah, 60 yards for Chubb on 13 attempts, not bad, versus a really good Rams run defense. So I thought that was not bad. But yeah. Who 28 attempts, 69 yards, 2.5 per carry. That was the run defense for the Texans. So the Texans run defense actually pretty decent. Let's see. A little bit of history for the Bucs and the Texans. 6 total meetings. Texans have won the last 5 in a row. So I feel like the Bucs are due. Last time the Bucs won was 16-3 victory back in 2003. I think that was my senior year of high school. So cool. That was a long time ago. Texans cannot go 0-2. It's like a must. The percentage, the chances of you making the playoffs when you go 0-2 is very hard. One of the last teams to actually do it was the Texans a couple of years back, but can't be banking on that. I know it's a weak division, but the Colts looked good. Jaguars looked okay. So I still think T-Law's going to T-Law. It's kind of like Caleb, unfortunately. Caleb started off strong, and then you look at his stats and completion percentages and all that stuff towards the end of the game, and it's like same stuff they kind of saw last year, unfortunately. So, yeah. Still a little bit sour about the game, but like I said, Monday night, bright lights. CJ usually performs pretty well in these situations. Texans have done well in these primetime games with him as a quarterback, so I'm not too mad about it. He's lost some close ones in those, but at the same time, he's pulled off some great victories, and so I think that we'll at least see a little bit more urgency, probably a better game plan from Nick Haley. At least I'm hoping, and at least a couple of touchdowns. The 46.5 point over under is encouraging as well. So Vegas probably expects a little bit of bounce back, especially having the Texans at home with that defense there. So keys to victory, real quick though, you got to get into a rhythm early. I talked about it a bunch of times. CJ last time when he was at home playing the Bucs, 470-5. Crazy, right? So got to have that tempo, got to cut the penalties, can't play timid, got to take some shots down the field. Everything was quick. Used too many tight ends. Kate Stover's hurt now. We have to activate Harrison Bryant. So I'd rather us, put out the 3 wide receiver sets. That's cool. Get some big bodies in there. Justin Watson looked okay. I don't mind if you put him in over Hutchinson or whatever, but give Higgins a shot. I think that was a learning point. Also having that ball kind of ripped out of his hands for that CJ Stroud interception. So both of those turnovers, not CJ's fault, could have had opportunities to finish those drive with points and more yards. So I think that there's an opportunity for him to bounce back. There's a really tough defense. You can't forget how good the Rams really are. I think that little underestimated as far as the way just the media and people kind of treat them. So yeah. 4 guys who have Brock and need QB. Which free agency do you like better? Fields, Rodgers, Daniel Jones. I would put them in this order. I'd go Fields, Daniel Jones to see if it's the truth here, and then Rodgers just because he's old. And I feel like the 4-game TD thing was kind of, I don't know if it's fluky or what. He's not going to have 4 TDs all the time. I like the upside of the 2 running quarterbacks. So Fields, get lightning in a bottle. Daniel Jones would be the next guy I would kind of go for, and that's how I did it. I picked up in a quarterback premium league. I have Drake May and Geno Smith already, who put up about 35 points or so in those leagues. But then like somebody like Justin Fields could be a game breaker if he continues to do what he does in the ground. Both of those guys had 2 rushing touchdowns, so I definitely prioritize those guys over Aaron Rodgers, who's looking like he's a little bit better now that he's recovered or had an extra year to recover from the Achilles. But another year older. I don't know. 4 touchdowns is crazy. It was a crazy game. That was a crazy game. Maybe neither of those quarterbacks, right? And then maybe Miami is just like super ass, and that's why Daniel Jones did good. So that's why I really got to wait and see with week 2 here. And that's why, like I said, week 1 here with the Texans, good team on the road. Basically, none of these guys played preseason games or played much in the preseason. Very, very rusty guys on defense and on offense, both. So tough. And it looked like it, even from the Rams' perspective, for a good while until Puka got going kind of in the second half, and Matthew Stafford started slinging it with his eyes closed and beating the blitz like crazy. And go back and watch some of those throws. If it was Patrick Mahomes, media types would be wet like right now, so they'd be standing in a puddle of their own juices. But it's Matthew Stafford, so it's not that sexy. Let's see. I feel like pressure gets to CJ kind of like Caleb Williams. Failure gets in their heads and they just start fucking up. I kind of just feel like the pressure is just always in their fucking face, and it's just hard to make plays. You're running for your life, when you have a good offensive line, you can kind of sit there and it's a little easier to dissect defenses. It's really hard to play quarterback in the NFL. and it's even harder when you're getting pressured on 40+ % of your dropbacks, which is like, almost half the time when you're either off your spot or I did mention that 7 snaps, less than 2 seconds to get rid of the football. So imagine ball snap 1001. By the time it gets to your hand, right? So 1002, you're already having to get rid of the football, or somebody's in your face and bringing you down. Not a lot of time to make a decision or do anything in those situations. So yeah, the pressure definitely gets to them, but I think that literally the pressure gets to them. Figuratively, not necessarily gets in their heads too much. I think that those guys also at times can be very streaky, and when they are confident, you can see what they can do with that confidence. So, I wouldn't be too critical of teams that don't put their quarterbacks in good situations to succeed. The quarterback, not critical of the team. I would be critical of the team. I wouldn't be necessarily so critical of the quarterback. Uh, just I believe we stay tuned live. They were talking about it earlier too. Love in the at first with some of the surrounding pieces, even the wide receiver core. Like everybody's just always hurt, and you finally bring in somebody like Josh Jacobs and just kind of and Michael Parsons, and now you're starting to make those moves. And I think the Texans tried to do some of that, but then every time they do it, somebody gets hurt. And it's like, well, what can you do? Christian Kirk, we have yet to see him. He's a new addition. Hasn't been out there. CJ Gardner-Johnson didn't practice most of the preseason, play any of the preseason, got injured, was making his way back, and kind of looked a little out of place at times, and maybe a step behind because, missing time. And that affects people. It's a whole month or so of everybody moving and getting ramped up while you're having to rehab or sit on the sidelines and watch or just look at the playbook. So it's very different from actually being out there and getting reps. But yeah, week 2, things hopefully, like I said, will start ramping up. CJ said they had a horrible week of practice. I was like, well, if you already had that feeling, then then the vibes aren't good. So you gotta hopefully they can turn that around. You can get the vibes going, because if that's going to be an issue, then there's going to be problems all season long. I'm not hitting the panic button on anybody just yet, though. Definitely got to wait and see what happens this week. I think it's not an easier test, but just a better test of regulation. What are they called? Those like a litmus test, one of those strips or whatever, right? You get to see a little bit better here with this second matchup and kind of gather more data. But I think if we see the pressure rate really high, we see the offense struggle to score points, or they only move between the 20s, and then there's more turnover. Then I think it's time to start hitting the panic button. We see a few targets, they can't get Nico Collins open, stuff like that. Then we can worry. But I think that they're going to make the proper adjustments. You have an extra day also. It's a Monday night game. So an extra day to kind of mull it over and get an extra practice in, an extra film session, a little bit of extra everything. And then you're playing at home. So making the other team kind of travel over for that as well. But, not, like I said, not too much advantageous things in that aspect. We have the 0-1 Houston Texans hosting the 1-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers Monday night on the Double Watch Party GWN Network. Just a few other things. Talking about that. No TDs, the lollygagging, no time to scan the defense. I mentioned they should probably trade for an offensive lineman. Yeah, then the Bucs defensive line. They got Vita Vea, Cansey, Reddick, Diaby, Diaby, who I actually have in a few IDP leagues. So if you're looking for IDP plays, may want to try and look at some of those guys if they are available for your defensive line, because the Texans offensive line will probably be olaying motherfuckers right through and letting them get right in CJ Stroud's face with almost immediately. So you have a good chance at a sack there. Just in my opinion. But more for letting things not get out of hand, right? And some more keys to the victory. You got to let Nico Collins cook. You got to have more than 5 targets for him. Nick Caley needs to dial some different stuff up. Get back to the basics and do what they do best and see what works at practice, right? Bucky Irving also, if they can contain him, I think that's going to be, probably one of the bigger things. Typically the Texans go in to do that. They're going to say, hey, you're not going to run the football against us, kind of try to make you one-dimensional. I think, though, that the pass rush needs to get there, or the defense at the back end needs to get their eyes out of the backfield and just kind of react a little quicker, be a little stickier in coverage in order for that to work, and you can get some bad balls down, and you can end some drives. Puka Nacua was killing us on third downs, I think, in the second half. of that game. They and the credit to the Rams. The Rams came out in the second half and made the proper adjustments and were able to get the victory. I think it was 9-7 at halftime. So yeah, 14-9 is the way it ended. They got another touchdown. They scored on a fourth down. They went for it and goal, and they got that. And that was ultimately, I mean, little things like that. You add all those little things up. It's ultimately a difference in a 5-point game. So yeah, disappointing. Let's see. These are just some other stuff. Let's see. Handling the blitz. X factors, right? Emeka Egbuka, 2 touchdowns. That's one. Petrie in coverage. Already mentioned that. He's a liability. So let's see if we can not get those matchups. See if we can get some more favorable matchups on the defensive side. That way we're not, forced to be chasing Puka down the sideline for a 20-yard gain with a game on the line to put it away. So yeah, get Petrie out of there. Not in obvious passing situations, right? It should have been CJ Gardner-Johnson or another nickel. Put in another safety for all I care, or another third quarterback, the rookie, because Petrie in coverage is just, I don't trust him to make a play on obvious passing downs. But yeah, as far as a game plan for stopping Egbuka or slowing them down or Evans, I would think it'd be best to probably have Stingley shadow the young Emeka Egbuka, because I don't want to have Jalen Petrie covering him in the slot. If Sting can cover him and shadow him in the slot, then by all means go ahead and do it, and have Lassiter on Mike Evans. Lassiter is a lot bigger, taller, kind of guy. So I think that he'll have a better opportunity to kind of stick with Evans streaking downfield. And so I think that would probably match up better. Put Sting shadowing and traveling with Egbuka, the young speedster, who I think he had like a 30-yard reception and like some breakaway touchdown type plays, because I know he had 2 of them. One of them, it looked like if that was in the middle of the field, he would have broken it for a long TD. So be best to have somebody like Derek Stingley, who's your best man in coverage, on a playmaker like that. I know Mike Evans is a huge playmaker, but like I said, he's more of a downfield deep bomb threat, and I think that's a little easier to play as opposed to like a speedster, a burner with plenty of moves who can beat you out of the slot and then take the break a long one. That's a game breaker. So you definitely want to figure out a way to scheme for that. We'll see. It'd be interesting. I'm not too worried about what D'Amico Ryans does. Pretty good. He's able to hold the Rams to 14 points this last week. So Texans should have won. I think the percentage of teams that hold the opponent to 14 points this last week or whatever. The Texans were the only team that didn't win. Let's just put it that way, which is a travesty. But anyways, I've come to my grand conclusion. You guys have any other questions? I think I got through basically everything you guys wanted to know. The Texans offense right now is putrid, but plenty of IDP plays or options you could look at as far as guys they're probably rostered right now. But if you do, I think speed is still probably a hold. He would be the next rotational guy in. Christian Harris got in there a little bit, played like 1% of the snaps, had 1 tackle. I don't know what the hell's going on with him. So Petrie still had like 5 tackles. He was in on one they didn't credit with a pass breakup. They said that like the guy was out of bounds, but it was a tough break on that play as well. If you're who was looking for the IDP points there, but I was watching the game closely. He didn't look great in coverage. I rage dropped him in a fantasy league. I'd just rather not pay attention to him in coverage and wait and see him on a blitz or breaking up a play or a forced fumble or fumble recovery type of thing. It's fine. I'll fine not banking on those points. Danielle Hunter, 30% pass rush win rate. We got to the quarterback as far as pressures, I think 3 or 4 times. So it wasn't too bad. He wasn't able to get home. Otherwise, he probably would have had a big game in your IDP 1, 2, 3s if he had gotten a sack, but I wouldn't move off of him or put him on your bench or anything. I think that he should continue to have some good opportunities this week again versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But yeah. Yes, Oling. The offensive line's horrible, Bakes. I don't know if you've actually watched the Texans game. It's really tough. It's hard it's hard to put it all on CJ. There were some clean pocket moments where he missed a couple of throws, but like I said, I think that wasn't necessarily his fault on like at least one of those that they ripped out of Jaden Higgins' hands, unfortunately. It was just a tough game. Yo, what's up, PB and Jelly? What's going on, man? We're about to close it down. We were just talking Texans. A little late today, but we ran the full course. I should try to get this in about 45 minutes to an hour. That's the the way I do it, it's a one-man show, a lot of talking and not a lot of water drinking in between, but try to get through everything that's fantasy relevant, fantasy important. Usually I'll have like graphics up and I'm throwing in like screens and clips and sound effects, but today was just like one of those crazy days, like I mentioned off the top. Had a long day, but we're doing it, man. We're doing it. The Raiders also threw to like 10 people. Yeah, I think after Bowers went down with the knee thing, they probably, I mean, it's by necessity had to throw to a couple of other ones, but yeah, but Gino looked great doing it. Stroud threw it to he threw the ball. It was one target to at least 10 people. I'm not saying all those people caught it. Damian Pierce had one target, didn't catch it, like stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So weird. Just very, very weird. Aguba Wale had like 2 receptions and one of them he fumbled away. It was just, you know, very weird the way that the offense ran. So anyways, guys, I'm at the point now where I think I got it all off my chest. We're ready to rock. Tomorrow we do have a Thursday night football watch party. It's going to be a great game. Got the Packers and Washington Commanders. Make sure you're tuning in with the GWN Network. Hit the like and subscribe button. That way you guys can make sure you're watching us. Get through all the crazy stuff. You get to hear Lee, cussing his ass off at whoever is not a Chargers fan. And then everybody else doing, good classic. I mean, Lee does analysis as well, but it's just fun to watch him during lives. But yeah, how did Pierce look to me? He wasn't able to do anything with his opportunities. I feel like he has juice maybe in the return game, but he didn't even get a chance to return any of those. A lot of those were touchbacks into the end zone yeah, so actually, yeah, they were touchbacks in the end zone. They just didn't even allow him to bring those out. I think the Rams were just fine with letting the Texans bring it out at 35 and some of those, but the offense wasn't doing much. And when they were able to move the football, then they turned it over, just turned into a field goal. So, but yeah, Pierce didn't do much. Didn't have a lot of didn't get a lot of run. I think that Chubb did operate as the bell cow, but Pierce would be, I think, next in line. And then Woody Marks, for some reason, is an afterthought right now. I feel like the Texans are kind of doing that old, we're not going to play our rookies right now because we don't trust them. So it really looks that way. Noel and Higgins, not necessarily, out on the field as much. You have guys like Watson and Hutchinson playing more. You have Aguba Wale playing ahead of Woody Marks. You're probably going to see British Brooks in there at fullback this week and playing some tight end. I mean, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what Nick Haley's going to do. I really got to go back and look at the plays they ran and the style of what they did. But Nico Collins' route tree left a lot to be desired. It's questionable. It's like you got rid of there's an Ian Hartitz tweet actually. Let me see if I can get to it. But like he was sharing the percentages of the route participation for the Texans. And then I mentioned, oh, he looks like Bobby Slow 2.0. And then he says that, it's actually worse. And he gives me the, let me see, scheme issues. Here it is. So maybe I should just do a screen share. That way you guys can see it instead of me reading it. There we go. So he shared the route percentage right here. It was like 88 for Nico, 68 for Hutchinson. I told you, Ginger Ninja, that they liked Hutchinson. Look at that route percentage participation, 68%, bro. Then Justin Watson, who I thought was kind of surprising to see rolling out over the other guys. So I was like, I said Nick Haley looking like Bobby Slow 2.0. Let me enlarge this, sorry. There we go, that's better. And then he's like, actually seemed worse. 11% play action, 8% pre-snap ship motion from last year. It's like, what is that? Like, they were supposed to bring that up, and they didn't at all because there was zero freaking rhythm tempo. It was crazy. And then just 1 week at LA, so the Rams are no joke to deal with. He's like, but it's very underwhelming considering the front office had, time to do this, basically is what he said. So, very, very, very disheartening. And I scared myself with a super large image of myself there. Crazy. All right. Let's see, where are we at? Weird to me that the Ravens also said Keaton Mitchell, but had Rasheed Ali out there instead of Justin Hill. Yeah. I don't know. That's another head scratcher. Saving the rookies for the end of the year so they can. Yeah, and that's the thing. We're fantasy football people, and they're like real life coaches. There's 17 more weeks to go still, so these guys are just trying to scrape by and get wins. They don't care how they do it. I don't think. So you got to work with what you got, right? But as far as that goes, I wouldn't be putting any. I'd just be holding a lot of these guys unless you really need the roster space, right? In redrafts or deep leagues. But as far as dynasties, right, you can keep them on your taxis. No need to move them out. Kate Stover has been moved to the IR. Harrison Bryant's been added. We'll see if they make any moves or any trades. I feel like they have the capital to do it, but they're always the Houston Texans are always like, we like what we have at house. So they'll probably just elevate dudes from the practice squad and say next man up, because that's literally what they say all the time. And it's usually never enough talent wise. And then when we run into a good team deep in the playoffs, we get our asses kicked. We'll see what happens this coming Monday, but I do appreciate everybody who's out there hanging out with us. Make sure you're checking out neonpeacockmerch.com. Check out the show. Tomorrow's Thursday, so we're going to have the live watch party tomorrow night, and then we'll hit you up on Friday with the reaction show, and we'll prime the games and matchups going into Sunday. And then don't forget, Sunday, Grit Don't Quit. It's all of your fantasy football lineup advice questions, so we'll take questions like this. Oliver Boosie, appreciate you, man. Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers this week. Commanders defense. Who do the Steelers play in a second, man? Let me do some quick research for you, brother. Aaron. So they're at Seattle. Seattle also had a kind of stingy. Like I said, the 4 TDs a little hard to bank on, to be honest. Matchup wise, probably the same. I think this is one of those you kind of have to come back on Sunday morning. But no, I guess you can't wait because that game's tomorrow, man. How did the Commanders do versus the QB last week? I mean, Bakes is on Love. I mean, yeah, I'm kind of feeling the same way. I feel like the Aaron Rodgers thing was a little fluky. I think that Love might be in a position to throw the football a little bit more in this game because the Commanders are, a good team. Yeah, they stomped out Russ. I know it's Russ, so it's not really telling us much, right? It's not giving us a great gauge, but just based off of the way that the defense has played, I'd lean a little bit more. I'd still lean a little bit more Jordan Love for tomorrow night. I'm hoping that we're going to get a good game, a good shootout, maybe. And the bad thing is, I think maybe Jordan Love is going to have like a great game, and we're going to be like, yeah, it's awesome. And then the game will be over, and we'll look at it and be like, oh shit, like Josh Jacobs rushed for 2 touchdowns, and Love only threw for 1, and his fantasy game wasn't as good as his real life game. But I wouldn't bank on Aaron Rodgers throwing more than 2 touchdowns again this weekend either. So, were the Aaron Rodgers touchdowns like deep bombs? Because I do know. Well, who's the defensive coordinator in Seattle? See, there's a whole bunch of things, but I would say come back on the show. The live watch party will be kicking it off beforehand. We'll probably talk about who we should be starting beforehand, so you want to check that out. But right now, I'm leaning Jordan Love. He's just younger, and he's probably, like I said, he's going to be elevated to throw in that game in the way that it's going to be. The way in my mind it's going to play out tomorrow. I don't know what the over/under is, but I'm hoping it's going to be kind of high. Yeah, that's true. Aaron Rodgers ain't going to get you a rushing TD, though. Yeah, that's true. Jordan Love might. So that's another good point. Like I'm saying, and a healthy Jordan Love is a good Jordan Love. So, yeah, he looked pretty impressive. He was able to use super efficient. I think he only threw the ball like 18 times, and he threw 2 touchdowns or some shit. So I would still lean Jordan Love in that case. But yeah, if you really want some more in-depth discussion, come back pre-game tomorrow. GWN Network live watch party. I want to work on the graphic and get the stream link up for everybody on YouTube shortly. or maybe tomorrow morning. But go ahead and check that out. Make sure you like and subscribe. That way you don't miss it. And we'll go on typically like 20-30 minutes before game time, and just any last minute start sit decision questions. You can probably throw those in the chat and see if we can answer those for you. Only reason you're yeah. Plus DK's revenge game. Oh shit, that changes things. No, it kind of does though. That's a good point. That's a good reason to put it in consideration. But don't let's not overreact too much to week one. Let's play our starters or start your studs still. I think it's like stick with the guys. Let's see if we can get a baseline. Then if things don't look that great, or Rodgers comes out like guns a blazing again, then like he's a must start moving forward, right? Obviously. But yeah, you don't want to be there for if it falls out again or it just turns into like a dud. What I would do is go check out the DraftKings over underlines on those games and see which one looks like it's going to be a higher scored game, which one has the higher pace of play as well. I think the Packers like to slow things down a little bit, which is why you're not going to get a high passing volume from Jordan Love. But in this case, Washington runs the ball a lot. The pace of play is faster. They score quick. So maybe that would be, like I said, pushing Jordan Love to throw the football a little bit. Yeah, rip Charlie Kirk, man. That's horrible. Like, I'm not politically affiliated on either side, really. I don't really give a shit. But it's not cool. Sucks. Sucks that the irony, honestly, in it too. But yeah. One more question: Kelsey or Juwan Johnson? Man, to be honest, I'd probably be leaning Juwan Johnson. Like at Kelsey, look with Kelsey, Worthy goes out early, and it turns into Hollywood Brown show. Kelsey saved by a touchdown. Juwan Johnson got 11 targets. I don't think he's going to get 11 targets again, but he could get 7 or 8, and he can do something with it. So I know Kelsey could find the end zone again, but I don't see that the volume being there. He's just slowly been declining year after year. It's just not what it used to be. So to be honest, if I had this, I would play Juwan Johnson. I have Kelsey in some lineups. I don't know who my backups are in those leagues. Hold on. Let me see if there's anybody on my bench that I would actively move in over Kelsey right now. Yeah. So, oh no. I have Jake Ferguson over somebody else. I guess it was Worthy who got hurt, and I still have Kelsey in there. But anyway, let's see. Where else do I have Kelsey? Kelsey here. I'm in a couple of dynasties, so it's like I might not have a choice but to play a different tight end. Here. Wasn't there a feature on Sleeper where you can just search the name and it tells you like where he's available or what leagues you own him in? Pretty sure. But yeah, there's some guys I would play. I think in that situation, like I said, I would play him. I would play him over Kelsey. I wasn't too impressed with Kelsey. I felt like he should have been more involved in this one. I'm forced to start Kelsey because it's a 32-man league. Let's see. I think those are the only places I have Kelsey, so I'm basically forced to start him. But in that particular situation, I do think, Spencer the Guru, man, where you at, Spencer? He would definitely be able to tell you a little bit more about Juwan Man Johnson. But I think Juwan Man's been one of those guys we talked about over the years. Like, he could break out, he could break out, he could break out. But if Spencer Rattler continues to just pepper him with targets like that, then I really, really like him as far as the target market share there, You're about to start Tonjas everywhere. You have Skittles. Man, it's rough out there in the streets, bro. I know. I saw you go hard in the paint for him in one of those leagues. You just like threw that fab. I didn't realize we had $500 in one of those leagues, and my bids were a joke. I thought we were fucking with $100. So yeah, I just laughed afterwards. I was like, I didn't get anybody. That's funny. I should have paid more attention. That was the only league that happened to me in. In my home league, I overbid for Keyshawn Booty a little bit, but other than that, I got Daniel Jones. I missed out by a couple of bucks on Fields, so Jones was the second option for me. And then who else? There was another one. Hey, appreciate you, Oliver, man. That's awesome, dude. Subscribe. Yeah. Definitely make sure that you check out the other channels, especially the GWN network stuff, man, because that's where you'll be notified when everybody goes live on, no matter what channel it is or whatever's going on. So appreciate you, brother. And yeah, check back in on Sunday if you have more start sit questions. We definitely run through all those. I wasn't able to join the guys this last Sunday. I volunteered at church, but I am free this Sunday, so I'll be offering some advice as well. How much did the Texans beat the Bucs by? Oh gosh, don't do this to me, Brandon. If the Texans win, 27-24 Texans. I got Hollywood in my work league. Okay. Full fab unload. Yeah, for real, man. You totally splurged. Sploosh. But kudos, man. I mean, if you're gonna go hard in the paint like that. Do it. I did that in a few other leagues. Just in that one, like I said, I didn't realize how much money we had. It feels pretty stupid. But now I know, and now I have fab for week 2 if there's another, huge waiver wire ad or something like that coming. But yeah. Hey, well, appreciate everybody for pulling through. I thought, going this late, I was going to be like talking to me and Lee or something like that. But appreciate everybody checking in and going through that pain with me. But yeah, also, talking about some of the good things and bad things that we saw from the other teams as well, and some things to consider and look for this weekend. You're obviously on the other side with the Bucs. You're firing up your Bucs. You're hoping for a bounce back from Bucky, but I'm not too sure he gets it. Texans' run defense is pretty stingy. So, but if you're in a pinch, you drafted him where you drafted him, right? You're probably flexing him or putting him in your RB2 spot. So, But appreciate everybody, man. You guys check it out. Next Wednesday, we will be back discussing our week 3 matchup and seeing what happened with this one on Monday night. But happy football to you all. Appreciate everybody for showing up and showing out. Remember that you cannot spell peace without peacock.
It's special. We started practice. We practiced off this week, man. Hey, them boys are tired. Let's keep it up this week, man. Texans!
Suck my dick and pay me. She don't call back like, damn. and my brother's always busy. That's why shorty fucking with me. She the only one that give me. Yeah, and I rolled this here for 2. I just hop up in the whip. I hit up 6. She smoke it with me. Little bitch.